I can't get infections, I can't get sick, I regrow my organs in a matter of seconds, I can regenerate a liter of blood every 10 seconds, my limbs aren't an issue either. I have what can be best understood as a massive healing factor. I've always had it, the healing factor. Ever since I was a kid, I've never scraped my knee, never caught a cold, never had to go to the nurse, and never broken a bone, despite participating in various sports. Everybody initially assumed I had a strong immune system or was simply lucky. I went most of my life believing I was just a lucky guy. When I went in for my vaccinations, the doctors said my skin was unusually thick, and they had to inject me quickly and remove the needle even quicker. I never even got drunk, no matter how many shots I took. I never got even tipsy, nor did I ever vomit. I always attributed that to some sort of immunity. Nothing I smoked in my teens got me anywhere either. I was in a car accident when I was 22. It was bad. I rolled 4 times, and ended up crushed between the car that rear-ended me and a tree. The car was totaled, and I should have been, too. I thought I was dead when I saw my shattered leg begin to crack and force itself back together, when the blood that poured out of my head suddenly became a trickle, then nothing. What eyesight I had left in my eyes came back just as quickly. Doctors called it a miracle that I walked away from that accident. Most that had to be done was cutting me out of the car. I knew what I saw, but the doctors told me I was probably just hallucinating from the accident. When I didn't have even a little whiplash in the morning, I went to the hospital. I thought I was in shock, and I wanted to make sure nothing was wrong. Not even a bruise. The doctors sent me home that night, and when I got home, I needed to be sure of something. I grabbed a kitchen knife and cut into my left index finger, just enough to cut through the very tip of the finger. It hurt like hell, but as I suspected, the bleeding only lasted for a moment, and the tip was back. It looked exactly like the old one, and I knew I wasn't hallucinating since my disembodied fingertip was still on the counter. This should have been the discovery of a lifetime, and for a brief second it was. I ran to the hospital and chopped my finger off in the lobby. I let the disembodied digit hit the floor to the terror of everybody in the office, but within seconds, the finger was back. I grabbed my old finger and showed it to the nurses who surrounded me. Whispers of magic tricks went around until I chopped my hand off. Blood spewed for only a second, like the last bits of water stuck in a shower head, then stopped. My palm came back, then my fingers. Within moments, I was on the news. The Miraculous Healing Man was one headline I still remember. I was a celebrity, I was a philanthropist, and I had it all. I lived off of donations and whatever blood drives were willing to give me. I ended the blood crisis. I have blood, so I can give to anybody. A lot of my days were spent playing video games while a nurse tracked how many blood bags I produced in 8 hours. Occasionally, the nurse would have to phone a friend to get more bags. If I drank a lot of water that day, well, they'd fill up quite fast. My body healed around the needles, so prying them out was a bit of a chore. Eventually, I discussed it with the nurses to just keep the needle in there. It honestly wasn't worth the hassle, and since I declared this my full-time job, it wasn't like I was worried about what work would think. Sleeping with it in was a bit weird, but you get used to it. When I got a call from one of the many nurses who serviced me, asking if I was willing to personally donate my kidney to her son, I didn't know what to do. At that point, I wasn't sure if I could or couldn't regrow organs. I had a bit of a crush on her, though, so I went through with it. According to the doctors, the biggest complication regarding the surgery was figuring out how to actually keep my body from closing up the incision. They just had to have somebody constantly scraping the area with a scalpel to keep it open, alongside keeping me pumped full of anesthetics, as my body fights them off quickly. All in all, it was a success, and by the end of the day, I was back home giving blood again. I went back the next day, and yep, I had 2 fully functioning kidneys. There wasn't even a scar left from the incision. That's when a doctor entered the room and sat down with me. "An 8-year-old boy needs a kidney. Are you willing to go through the surgery again?" I didn't think, I just agreed. Later that day, the boy had a functioning kidney in him, and I wasn't left with any less than what I started with. They kept me in the hospital overnight. I wasn't sure why they never made me before, but I didn't really care. With all my donations, blood and organ-wise, paying for the surgeries or hospital stay wasn't an issue. At this point, people still donated money to me directly, and I didn't mind losing a day of blood donations. When I woke up that morning, a little girl was sitting down next to my bed, and a scrub-laden doctor sat up out of his chair. "This is Samantha. She's gonna need a heart transplant by next month or she'll die. Are you willing?" I was. I wasn't sure if the removal of my heart would kill me. I regrew a kidney twice in 3 days, and I was confident. That little girl had a heart at the end of the day, and so did I. They didn't permit me to leave then either, but I understood that one. I was starting to get homesick at that point, and tried to check out in the middle of the night, but was stopped by various nurses begging me to stay. Telling me about all the organs the hospital needs. How understaffed they are, how quickly they could solve major world problems if I just stayed a little longer. I gave 3 people a chance to live normal to semi-normal lives so far. I gave so much blood that at the time, I never saw any ads for blood drives, so why stop now? I figured I'd be a hero if I did this. I'd be a legend. I probably already was. I decided to go back to my room on the condition that a nurse gets me takeout and a Red Bull. I had both by the time I showered and made my way back to bed. After I ate, a doctor came in and put a large notebook on my desk. In it was every organ transplant needed in the hospital, and how much blood would be needed. He asked if I would be okay to do these surgeries, and that they would take more organs out per surgery to maximize efficiency. They'd take my blood during these surgeries, too. I looked at the names. Every one of them was a life, a person who would mildly inconvenience me, but in return I'd give them life. I'd give them a chance. I agreed and was rushed to surgery. This was the first time they didn't put me under anesthesia. I tried to fight, but they gave me just enough so that I couldn't move, but could feel everything, the needle in my skin. Their hands haphazardly digging through me to collect my organs. Skin grafts were taken. I don't even know what they did with them. My plasma was siphoned out, and they stitched me back up. Once the anesthesia wore off, I decided to leave. I fought through the doctors proclaiming how much of a miracle I was, and how much I was going to do for people. I didn't care. I wasn't a guinea pig. I'm a human, still. I tried to go, but I felt a small prick and I was out. My healing factor is incredibly strong. So strong that during blood donations, my body would heal over the needles. So strong that doctors had jokes about me absorbing their tools. God knows how many are stuck inside of me as I write this. I doubt they bother extracting them anymore. I can heal around things, and that's what I woke up to. Both of my feet had been split open, and the bars of the hospital beds had been inserted through them. I was healed in my bed. No amount of struggling managed to free them. Normally, I would have just cut them off and hide until they grew back. This was a hospital room. There was no equipment around me since I couldn't get sick, and there was nothing to free myself with. Day after day, I was rolled into rooms, given barely enough sedatives to keep me from moving too much, damaging my valuable organs. The doctors and nurses would see me staring and talk about my miracle, and how I was such a good person for doing this. They spoke like I wasn't there. I could barely open my mouth to moan in pain. But every time they just shushed me like a toddler having a tantrum and continued to cut and pry. Several people needed to scrape the incisions so they wouldn't close. Clumps of ribboned flesh littered the floor after each surgery. They closed my blinds and took my phone. The only 2 remnants of my life I still had. Now I couldn't even know if it was a good day outside or not. They must have caught on to me staring. They didn't want me to damage my valuable eyes. I constantly had a nurse in the room, but I rarely spoke to them. All they'd talk to me about was some sick miracle I had, then talk about how little Susie gets to live a normal life while I'm stuck here being torn open and left there to heal. They stopped even sewing me up. They didn't want to waste any resources, so they just left my empty cavity open to heal over. Have you ever smelled blood? Probably, yeah. Have you ever smelled your own organs? Have you smelled what should have killed you, seen what should have done you in for good? God, why was I given this ability? I don't even know what year it is anymore, what day it is, or how many of my organs litter the general populace. How many people have I saved? It's all a number at this point. I used to get letters and gifts, but now I sit in a dark hospital room that rarely gets cleaned. I'm lucky if they remember that healing factor or not. I gotta use the restroom every now and again. I'm lucky if I get a candy bar on Halloween or a small Christmas tree placed in the room. I'm lucky if they remember I'm still alive. During one of my surgeries, as I was staring into the fluorescent lights, hoping that maybe it was the light, I overheard a conversation, and finally, some unfamiliar pain. You get used to being ripped open and torn into. I wasn't used to this pain. It was a novel. The one thing I had left was pain, but at least it was something new. I looked down as they began to cut into my leg, tearing it off roughly. A small spurt of blood came out before the wound became a scab, then a lump. Now the other one. Then my arms. I could only look at the doctors as they threw my legs into a freezer. One of the nurses began to speak. Do you think it's really gonna make a difference? As long as we don't tell them where it came from, do you think starving children care? At this point, I think I was so jaded that the idea didn't seem strange. I existed as a living organ factory. How much worse is it to be an infinite food source? They started taking my legs at least once a day, my arms twice. I guess my healing factor has limits. My legs take an entire day to grow back when my organs are damaged, and whenever my legs begin to heal, they get cut off again. I don't fully understand my healing factor, but I understand the following: that I can't age, I can't get sick or have infections. I don't need to eat much, but it heightens my abilities, and people who get my donations don't get my abilities. I do know a few more limitations. If my entire body is very heavily damaged, my body will focus on the most important organs like the heart rather than healing my legs. Without food, healing slows, and now I know of another. I waited until my arms were back to write this, and I'm missing a finger. My other hand is much smaller. It looks like it belongs to a 9-year-old instead of me, however old I am, but it is stuck onto the arm of an adult man. Constant removal and healing must have damaged me. That's why I'm writing this. That's why I'm posting this. I want people to know where the organs are coming from. I want to find a nurse, or somebody who can impersonate one, to shoot me. Right in the head, where you know it will kill. They haven't touched my brain, and it's my one hope for death. It's the one unknown I have. It's the last hope I have. Don't slit my neck, it'll just heal. Nothing along those lines will work. I need to be shot dead, or just shot. I need some closure. Either I'll know that I can't die and I'm stuck like this, or it won't be my issue anymore. Last night, I managed to pickpocket a kind nurse who was willing to get close enough to me to allow me to steal it. I can almost assure you, right now, that when they do eventually figure out I have the phone, they'll find a way to make sure nobody gets close enough for me to steal another. I know I'm selfish. I want to get rid of what could be a life source for millions. I've given so much, I think I deserve just one thing. I don't know if it will even work, but please, somebody shoot me. At the very least, it will let me know there's no way out of this. At the very least, I'll have that bit of closure. So, please, if you're a nurse or other medical professional, ask for the man who regrows organs. If they take you to me, please don't hesitate. Shoot me.